November 4th, 1899, Volume 3, Different Effects of the Presence of Jesus and of that of the Devil. Since this morning blessed Jesus was not coming, the devil was trying to assume his shape and to make himself seen. But since I did not perceive the usual effects, I began to doubt, and I signed myself with cross. First myself, and then him. And the devil, in seeing himself signed, was trembling. Immediately I rejected him without even looking at him. After a little while my dear Jesus came, and fearing that it might be the evil spirit once again, I tried to reject him, invoking the help of Jesus and of the Queen Mamma. But to assure me that it was not the devil, he told me, "My daughter, in order to be assured of whether it is I or not, your attention must be on the interior effects, whether they move toward virtue or toward vice. In fact, since my nature is virtue, I make my children heirs of nothing else but virtue. You can also comprehend this from human nature, which is made of flesh. If it happens to develop some wounds, the flesh becomes rotten, and one can say that it is no longer flesh. In the same way, if my nature could retain even the slightest shadow of vice within itself, it would cease to be the God that it is, which can never happen." November 4th, 1909, Volume 9. With his beatitude, God renders all heaven blissful, because everything is harmony in him. Having received communion, I was saying to my adorable Jesus, "I am now tightly united with you. Even more, I am identified with you. If we are one single thing, I leave my being in you, and I take yours. So I leave you my mind, and I take yours. I leave you my eyes, my mouth, my heart, my hands, my steps. Oh, how happy I will be from now on. I will think with your mind. I will look with your eyes. I will speak with your mouth. I will love with your heart. I will work with your hands. I will walk with your feet. And if something comes to me, I will say, I left my being in Jesus and I took his own. Go to Jesus and he will answer you for me." Oh, how blissful I feel. Ah, yes, I take from you also your beatitude. Isn't it true, Jesus? But my life and my good, with your beatitude you render all heaven blissful, while if I take your beatitude, I make no one blissful. And Jesus told me, "My daughter, you too, by taking all of my being along with my beatitude, can make others blissful. Why has my being the virtue of beatifying? Because everything is harmony in me. One virtue harmonizes with the other, justice with mercy, sanctity with beauty, wisdom with strength, immensity with depth and height, and so with all the rest. Everything is harmony in me. Nothing is discordant. These harmonies make me blissful, and I beatify all those who draw near me. So as you take my being, be careful that all virtues harmonize among themselves, and this harmony will communicate beatitude to whomever draws near you, because in seeing goodness, sweetness, patience, charity, and equality in everything in you, they will feel blissful being near you." November 4th, 1914, Volume 11, The New and Continuous Way to Meditate the Hours of the Passion. I was doing the Hours of the Passion, and Jesus, all pleased, told me, "My daughter, if you knew what great satisfaction I feel in seeing you repeating these hours of my passion, always repeating them over and over again, you would be happy. It is true that my saints have meditated my passion and understood how much I suffered, melting in tears of compassion, to the extent of feeling consumed for love of my pains. However, not in this continuous manner, always repeated and in this order. Therefore I can say that you are the first one to give me this taste, so great and special, as you keep fragmenting within you, hour by hour, my life and all that I suffered. I feel so attracted that, hour after hour, I give you this food, and I eat the same food with you, doing what you do together with you. Know that I will reward you abundantly with new light and new graces, even after your death. Each time the souls on earth will do these hours of my passion, in heaven I will clothe you with ever new light and glory. November 4th, 1915, Volume 11. The scourge of the war must continue until people and priests are purified. As I was in my usual state, I found myself outside of myself together with the Queen Mamma, and I prayed that she would intercede with Jesus to stop the scourge of the war. I said to her, "Mamma, mercy for so many poor victims. Don't you see how much blood, how many members torn to pieces, how many moans and tears? You are the Mamma of Jesus, but ours too, so it is up to you to reconcile your children." As I was praying, she cried for them, but though crying, she seemed inflexible. I cried along and continued to pray for peace, and my dear Mamma told me, "My daughter, the earth is not purged yet. People are still hardened, and then if the chastisement ends, who will save the priests? Who will convert them? The garment that covers the life of many of them is so deplorable that even the lay people are disgusted in approaching them. Let us pray. Let us pray." November 4th, 1921, Volume 13. The reason why God used the word Fiat in creation. Sanctity in the creature must be between her and Jesus, Jesus giving his life and communicating his sanctity to her as her faithful companion, the creature receiving it as his faithful and inseparable companion. I feel all identified with my sweet Jesus, and as he came, I flung myself into his arms, abandoning myself completely in him, as in my own center. I felt an irresistible force to remain in his arms, and my sweet Jesus told me, "My daughter, this is the creature searching for the womb of her Creator in order to rest in his arms. It is your duty to come into the arms of your Creator, to rest in that womb from which you came out. In fact, you must know that many electric wires of communication and union pass between creature and Creator, which render her almost inseparable from me, provided that she has not withdrawn from my will, because withdrawing is nothing other than snapping the wires of communication and breaking the union. The life of the Creator, more than electricity, flows within the creature, and she flows within me. My life is spread within the creature. In creating her, I linked my wisdom to her intelligence, so that her intelligence might be nothing but the reflection on mine. And if man reaches such great extent with his science as to seem incredible, it is because the reflection of mine is reflected in his. If his eye is animated by a light, it is nothing other than the reflection of my eternal light being reflected in his eye. Among ourselves, the three divine persons, We had no need to speak in order to understand one another. However, in the creation I wanted to use the word, so I said Fiat, and things were made. To this Fiat I bound and gave the power that creatures might have the word in order to understand one another. Therefore, the human voices also are linked to my first word, as though by an electric wire, and from it all other words descend. And as I created man, I breathed on him with my breath, infusing life in him. But in this life I infused in him, I placed my whole life, according to what human capacity was able to contain. But I placed everything in him. There was nothing of my own which I did not share with him. See, even his breath is the reflection of my breath, with which I give him continuous life, while his breath is reflected in mine, and I feel it continuously within me. See then how many relations there are between me and the creature. This is why I love her so much, because I look at her as a birth from me, exclusively mine. And then, how did I ennoble the will of man? I linked it with mine, giving it all my prerogatives. I made it free, just like mine. And if to the body I had given too little lights, limited and circumscribed, which started from my eternal light, the human will I made all eyes. Therefore, as many acts as the human will forms, so many eyes can it claim to possess. It looks to the right, to the left, to the back, and to the front, and if the human life is not animated by this will, it will do nothing good. In creating it, I said to it, "You will be my sister on earth. My will from heaven will animate yours. We will be in continuous reflections, and whatever I will do, you will do as well. I by nature, and you by the grace of my continuous reflections. I will follow you like a shadow. I will never leave you." My only purpose in creating the creature was that he would do my will in everything. But with this, I wanted to bring to existence new births of myself. I wanted to make of him a prodigious portent, worthy of me and in everything similar to me. But alas, the human will was going to be the first to put itself against me. Take a look. All things are done between two. You have eyes, but if you did not have an external light which illuminates you, you could see nothing. You have hands, but if you did not have the necessary things with which to do your works, you would do nothing, and so with all the rest. Now, this is how I want sanctity in the creature. Between her and me, between the two of us, I on one side, she on the other, I giving my own life and communicating my sanctity to her as her faithful companion, she receiving it as my faithful and inseparable companion. In this way she would be the eye that sees, and I the sun that gives her light. She the mouth, and I the word. She the hands, and I the one who administers the work to let her operate. She the foot, and I the step. She the heart, and I the heartbeat. But do you know who forms this sanctity? My will alone is that which maintains the purpose of creation and order. The sanctity in my will is that which maintains perfect balance between creatures and Creator. These are the true images which came out from me. November 4th, 1926, Volume 20. How the Most Holy Virgin was the faithful copy of her Creator and of all creation. how the divine will has the virtue of changing drops of water into sea. The divine will veiled within created things. I was in my continuous state in the supreme will, praying my Queen Mamma to help me to impetrate this kingdom of the eternal Fiat. And my sweet Jesus, moving in my interior, told me, "My daughter, the most perfect copy of the children of the kingdom of my will was my celestial Mamma. And because it had its first daughter in it, redemption could come. Otherwise, had we not had the first daughter of our will, I, the eternal Word, would never have descended from heaven. In order to descend upon earth, I would never have made use of nor trusted children who were extraneous to our will. So you see, a daughter of our will was needed for the coming of the kingdom of redemption. And because she was daughter of the kingdom of the eternal Fiat, she was the faithful copy of her Creator and the perfect copy of all creation. She was to enclose all the acts that the supreme will exercises in all created things, and because she had supremacy and sovereignty over all creation, she was to enclose within herself the heavens, the stars, the sun, and everything, so that the copy of the heavens, of the sun, of the sea, and also of the earth, all flowery, might be found in her sovereignty. So in looking at my Mamma, one could see in her portents never before seen. One could see heavens, one could see most refulgent sun, one could see crystal clear sea, in which we reflected ourselves in order to see our daughter. One could see earth at springtime, always flowery, that attracted the celestial Maker to take his strolls on it. Oh, how beautiful was the celestial sovereign, as we saw in her not only our copy, but all of our works enclosed in her. And this because she enclosed our will within herself. Now for the coming of the kingdom of the supreme Fiat, another daughter of our will was needed, because if she were not its daughter, our will could entrust to her neither its secrets, nor its sorrows, nor its knowledges, its prodigies, its sanctity, its dominions. Just as a father and a mother enjoy making their goods known to their children and making their children possess them, even more they would like to possess more in order to make them more rich and happy. So does my will enjoy making its goods known to its children, to make them rich and happy, of a happiness without end. Now, in the kingdom of the supreme Fiat, we will have the copies of the sovereign queen. So she too longs for and awaits this divine kingdom on earth in order to have her copies. What a beautiful kingdom it will be, a kingdom of light, of infinite riches, a kingdom of perfect sanctity and of dominion. Our children of this kingdom will all be kings and queens. They will all be members of the divine and royal family. They will enclose all creation within themselves. They will have the resemblance, the physiognomy of our celestial Father, and therefore will be the fulfillment of our glory and the crown of our head. Then I remained thinking about what Jesus had told me, and I thought to myself, before she knew that she was to be the mother of the Word, my Mamma had no pain or sorrow. More so since by living within the expanses of the supreme will, she was happy. Therefore, among the many seas she possessed, she lacked the sea of pains. Yet without this sea of sorrow, she impetrated the longed-for Redeemer. And Jesus, resuming his speaking, added, "My daughter, even before knowing that she was to be my mother, my dear Mamma had her sea of sorrow, and this sea was the pain because of the offenses given to her Creator. Oh, how she grieved! And then this pain of hers was animated by a divine will, that she possessed, and that contains the virtue of a font. It has the virtue of changing everything that is done in it, the littlest things, the drops of water, into unending sea. My will does not know how to do small things, but all great. And this is so true that it was enough for us to open our mouth to say Fiat in order to extend a heaven whose boundaries cannot be seen. One Fiat to form a sun that fills the whole earth with light, and many other things. This says in clear notes that if my will operates or invests an atom, a little act, that atom, that little act, becomes sea. And if it bends down to do small things, it makes up for them with its regenerative virtue, making of them such a great number that man cannot arrive at counting them all. Who can arrive at counting how many fish and how many species are in the sea? How many birds? How many plants fill the earth? Therefore, the little I love you in my will becomes sea of love. The little prayer turns into sea of prayer. The I adore you into a sea of adoration. The little pains into sea of pains. And if the soul repeats her I love you, her adoration, her prayers in my volition, and suffers in it, my will rises, forming gigantic waves of love, of prayers, and of pains that go to unload themselves into the unending sea of the Eternal One, in such a way as to place the love of God and that of the creature in common, because one is the will of both one and the other. Therefore, one who lets herself be dominated by my will possesses as many seas for as many acts as she does in it. And while she does little, she has much. She has a divine volition that delights in making of the little act of the creature a sea, and only with these seas can she impetrate the longed-for kingdom of the divine Fiat. This is why our newborn, the little daughter of my will, was needed, so that turning her little pains, her I love you and everything she does into seas that communicate with the sea of the Eternal One, she can have ascendancy to impetrate the kingdom of my will. After this I was thinking to myself, when my sweet Jesus speaks about his will, he always touches upon creation for the most part. How is it? And Jesus, moving again, told me, my daughter, one who must live in the kingdom of the supreme Fiat must have as her beginning, her origin, and everything that my will has done and is doing for love of her. In fact, my will is not loved because it is not known. Now creation is the speaking life of my will. In all created things my will is hidden like a noble queen who, in order to go out, wants to be known. Knowledge will tear the veil that hides it, so as to go out and reign in the midst of its children. And who can make known what my will does for love of creatures better than creation, that is looked at and touched by everyone, with an act ever present? My daughter, look at the passionate love of this noble queen. She reaches the point of veiling herself with earth in order to render it firm, so that man may walk safely upon it. And as he walks over the veil of earth that hides her, she takes the soles of his feet in her noble and royal little hands, so that man may not stagger, in order to give him firm step. And while holding, through Mother Earth, the souls of man tightly to her noble breast, she would want to go out, unveiling herself of the veil of earth that covers her. But man walks over her without even paying attention to see who is sustaining his step. who maintains that great mass of earth so firmly for him, so that he may not stagger. And the noble queen continues to remain veiled with earth, and with unspeakable patience that only a divine will can possess, it waits to be recognized, in order to be loved and to narrate her long story, what she has done for love of man, veiled by this earth. And her love is so great that many times she feels the necessity to tear that veil of earth that covers her, and making use of her dominion, she shakes the earth, and with her empire hides cities and peoples into her bosom, so that man may know that inside that earth, under his feet, there is a will ruling and dominating, that loves and is not loved, and that sorrowful shakes itself to make itself known. In the Gospel, one can read with wonder of when, prostrated at the feet of my apostles, I washed their feet, and I did not skip even the perfidious Judas. This act, that the Church remembers, was certainly very humble and of unspeakable tenderness, but I did this act only once. But my will descends even lower. It places itself under their feet with a continuous act, in order to sustain them, to render the earth firm, so that they may not fall into the abyss. Yet no attention. This noble queen is waiting with invincible patience, veiled for so many centuries in all created things, for her will to be known. And when it becomes known, she will tear the many veils that hide her, and will make known what she has done for so many centuries for love of man. She will say unheard of things, excesses of love that no one has ever thought of. This is why, in speaking to you about my will, I often speak about creation, because my will is life of all created things, and through them it gives life to all. And this life wants to be known so that the kingdom of the eternal Fiat may come. Everywhere is my will veiled. It is veiled in the wind, and from within those veils it brings man its refrigerating freshness, as though caressing him, and its regenerative breath, in order to regenerate him continuously to new life ever growing in grace. But the noble queen, veiled in the wind, feels her caresses being rejected into offenses, her freshness into ardors of human passions, and her regenerative breath being requited with a deadly breath against her grace. And she shakes her veils, and the wind turns into fury, and with its might it sweeps away peoples, cities, and regions as if they were feathers, making known the power of the noble queen hidden in the wind. There is not one created thing in which my will is not veiled, and therefore all of them are waiting for it to become known, and for the coming of the kingdom of the supreme Fiat, and of its full triumph. November 4th, 1928, Volume 25. The truth is light that starts from God and fixes itself in the creature. The blessing of Jesus. My poor intelligence feels as though enraptured by the light of the divine Fiat, but this light brings not only heat and light, but is bearer of life, that centralizing itself in the soul forms her own light and heat within her, and from that center the divine life is reborn. How beautiful it is to see that the light of the eternal volition has the virtue of making the life of her Creator be reborn in the heart of the creature, and so many times, for as many times as this divine will bends down to make known to the creature more of its manifestations that pertain to it. Then while my mind was wandering in this light, my sweet Jesus, moving in this light, as it seemed he was as though sunken inside of it, told me, "My daughter, for as many truths as I have manifested to you about my divine will, So many lights have unleashed themselves from our divine womb and have fixed themselves in you, but without detaching from the center of your Creator. In fact, the light is inseparable from God. It communicates itself, it fixes itself in the creature, and it never loses its center from which it came out. How beautiful it is to see the creature, with all these lights fixed in her, that have the virtue of making He who created her arise again in the creature. And so many times, for as many truths as are manifested to her. And since what I have manifested to you on my divine will are innumerable truths, so many that you yourself cannot count them all, many lights, that is, many luminous rays, are fixed in you, that descend from God, but without detaching from its divine womb. These lights form the most beautiful ornament in you, and the greatest gift you could receive from God. In fact, since these truths are fixed in you, they give you right over the divine properties, and so many rights for as many truths as I have manifested to you. You cannot comprehend the great dowry you have been endowed with by God with these truths that, like many lights, are fixed in your soul. The whole of heaven is amazed at seeing so many lights in you, all pregnant with many divine lives. And as you communicate them to other creatures, this light winds its way. It fixes itself in other hearts, but without leaving you, and forms the divine life wherever it reaches. My daughter, what great treasure has been entrusted to you with so many truths I have told you on my divine will? A treasure that has its source in its divine womb, and that will always give light without ever ceasing. My truths are more than sun, that gives light to the earth, invests it, fixes on it, and in fixing on it, it gives birth, on the face of it, and for each thing, to the effects and the goods that its light contains. But jealous, it does not detach its light from its center, and this is so true that as it moves on to illuminate other regions, the earth remains in the dark. On the other hand, the sun of my truths, while it does not detach from its center, fixing itself in the soul, forms in her the perennial day. After this, benediction was given with the most holy sacrament, and I prayed him from the heart to bless me. And Jesus, moving in my interior, echoing what Jesus in the sacrament was doing, raised his blessed right hand in the act of blessing me, and told me, "My daughter, I bless your heart, and I seal my divine will in it, so that your heart, united with my divine will, may palpitate in all hearts, so that you may call all hearts to love it. I bless your thoughts, and I seal my divine will in them, that you may call all intelligences to know it. I bless your mouth, so that my divine will may flow in your voice, and you may call all human voices to speak about my fiat. I bless all of you, my daughter, so that everything may call my divine volition in you, and you may run to all in order to make it known. Oh, how much happier I feel in operating, praying, blessing in one in whom my will reigns. In this soul I find my life, the light, the company, and everything I do arises immediately, and I see the effects of my acts, and I am not alone if I pray, if I operate, but I have company and one who works together with me. On the other hand, in this sacramental prison, the accidents of the host are mute. They say not a word to me. I do everything on my own. I feel not a sigh that would unite to mine, nor a heartbeat that would love me. On the contrary, there is the cold of a sepulchre for me, that not only keeps me in prison, but buries me. And I have no one to whom to say a word, nor anyone with whom to pour myself out, because the host does not speak. I am always in silence, and with divine patience I wait for hearts that receive me, so as to break my silence and enjoy a little bit of company. And in the soul in whom I find my divine will, I feel myself repatriated in the celestial fatherland. November 4th, 1931, Volume 30. How Confidence Forms the Arms and the Feet of the Soul. How God continues the work of creation in the soul who does his will. The divine will, cement of the human will. My Jesus, center and life of my little soul, my littleness is such that I feel the extreme need for you, my love, to hold me tightly in your arms and be moved to pity at my great weakness. I am tiny, and you know that the little ones have need of swaddling clothes to strengthen their members, and of the milk of their mamma in order to be nourished and grow. And I feel the intense need for you to swaddle me with the swaddling clothes of love, and clasping me to your divine breast, give me the milk of your divine will for food, to nourish me and make me grow. Here, O Jesus, I feel the need of your life in order to live. I want to live of you, and then you will be writing, not I, and you will be able to write what you want and the way you want it. Therefore the task is yours, not mine. I will only lend you my hand, and you will to all the rest. Let us make this agreement, O Jesus. Then, abandoning myself in the arms of Jesus, I heard his most sweet voice whispering to my ear, saying to me, My little daughter, the more you remain abandoned in me, the more you will feel my life in you, and I will take the place of primary life in your soul. Know that true confidence in me forms the arms of the soul and the feet in order to climb up to me and clasp me so tightly that I cannot unbind myself from her. So one who has no confidence has no arms nor feet. She is a poor cripple. Therefore your confidence will be your victory over me, and I will hold you tightly in my arms, attached to my breast, to give you the continuous milk of my divine will. Now you must know that each time the soul does my will, I recognize myself in the creature. I recognize my works, my steps, my words, my love. It happens that the Creator recognizes himself and his works in the creature, and the creature, in operating, projects herself in the Creator and recognizes herself in him. This recognizing themselves in each other, God and the soul, calls for the first act of creation, and God goes out of his rest and continues the work of creation with this creature who lives and operates in my will. In fact, our work did not end. There was only a pause of rest, and the creature by doing our will calls us to work. But sweet call, because for us work is new happiness, new joys, and prodigious conquests. So we do nothing other than continue our outpourings of love, of power, of goodness, and of unreachable wisdom that gave the start in creation. And the creature feels that her God does not rest for her, but continues the labor of his creative work. And as she operates in our will, she feels, starting over in her soul, the reign of the operating love of God, his power and wisdom that does not remain idle, but works in her soul. Oh, if you knew the enjoyment, the pleasure we feel when the creature calls us to work. By calling us, she recognizes us. By calling us, she opens the doors to us. She gives us dominion, and she gives us all the freedom to do what we want in her soul. So, we will do a work worthy of our creative hands. Therefore, never let our divine will escape you if you want our work to be continuous. It will be your voice bearer and ours, in which you will emit your voice to call us, and we will hear the sweet whispering to our ear, and will immediately descend into our own will within your soul to continue our work. In fact, you must know that the continuous acts formed fulfilled life and works. What is not continuous can be called effects of my will, not life that is formed in the creature. And the effects, little by little, vanish away, and one remains on an empty stomach. Therefore, courage and confidence, and always forward, crossing the sea of the divine will. After this, I was following the acts that my highest good, Jesus, had done in his humanity when he was on earth, and making himself heard, he added, "My daughter, my human will had no active life, but rather it was in act of receiving the continuous act of my divine will that I, as word of the Celestial Father, possessed. Therefore all my acts and pains, prayers, breaths, and heartbeats that I did, as my human will would undergo the life of the divine will, formed many ties to retie the human wills to mine. And since these human wills were like houses, some collapsing, others damaged, and others reduced to ruin, my divine will, operating in my humanity, prepared with my acts the helps to sustain the ones collapsing, to cement the ones damaged, and to raise again upon their very ruins the houses destroyed. I did nothing for myself. I did not have any need. I did everything in order to redo, to rehabilitate the human wills. My only need was love, and wanting to be loved back. Now, in order to receive all my helps and all my pains and works as operating works, speaking voice, and helping messengers, the creature must unite her will to mine, and immediately she will feel herself retied to mine, and all my acts will offer themselves around to do their offices, in order to sustain, cement, and raise again the human will. As soon as she unites herself and decides to do my divine will, all of my acts, like fierce army, place themselves as defense of the creature, and form the boat of safety in the stormy sea of life. But for one who does not do my will, I could say that she receives nothing, nor can she receive, because my will alone is the outgiver of everything I did for love of creatures. November 4th, 1935, Volume 33. One who lives in the divine will possesses her Jesus in a perennial way, and he repeats the miracle of receiving himself that he operated in instituting the most holy sacrament. My abandonment continues in the divine volition, but however more I walk into its sea, so much more I feel the need of its life in order to continue to live. And having received Holy Communion, I felt the need of loving him. But my poor nothing did not have sufficient love in order to love him who loves me so much. My love was so scarce that I felt shame before the love of Jesus, who had so much of it that the limits could not be seen, and yet I wanted to love him. And my beloved Jesus, giving me courage, told me, My blessed daughter, do not become discouraged. For one who lives in my will, the nothing is held in the all, and wanting to love me, she loves me with my own love. I find in her my powerful, wise, attractive, immense love, in a way that this nothing of the creature takes me from all sides, and I feel bound by her love, that it is my own love, in a way that I cannot escape her. And now she wounds me. Now she darts, even to making me faint, and I feel the need of resting in the arms of her love. But this is not everything. One who lives in my will possesses her Jesus in a perennial way, because it has the virtue of forming, growing, and nourishing my life in the creature. And receiving me in the sacrament, I find another Jesus, that is myself, who loves me, adores me, thanks me, and repairs me. I can say that I repeat the great miracle that I did in instituting the sacrament of the Eucharist, that I communicated myself. That is, your Jesus received Jesus. It was the greatest honor, the most complete satisfaction, the exchange of heroism of my love to receive myself. Nothing was lacking to me of everything that was owed to me for my sacramental life. A God on a par with the same God. I could say that what I gave was re-given to me. Now, for one who lives in my will, not possessing her Jesus is impossible. Therefore, receiving me in the sacrament, I can say, I go to find myself in the creature, and I find what I want, my life that, uniting us together, forms one alone. I find my royal palace. I find the love that always loves me. I find the compensation for the great sacrifice of everything that I do and suffer in my sacramental life. My excessive love brings me with an irresistible strength to repeat the miracle of receiving myself, but it is given to me to do it only in the creature in whom my divine will reigns. End of November 4th. Fiat.